Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I'm kind of excited about this live. So I have two lovely ladies here to have this funny conversation with me. And you may be wondering, we're going to talk about how did it happen for you? And you're probably wondering, what is it? And so what we wanted to talk about is, all the things that women know, like how did it happen for you in the sense of like, how did you get your period? You know, that moment of go from, quizzical, curious, carefree little girl to all of a sudden now you're a woman. Dun, dun, dun.
Is that what happened? I became a woman?
I don't know. I think this reality likes to think that that's what happened. And I will say that for some women, that is the experience that they had. And so really what prompted this conversation was we were all on a call and we were talking about the fact that it is really funny that most women have some type of a story of
I would say probably all
women. Like we all kind of have that. And some of you are probably giggling to yourself because most often, like I've heard a lot of horror stories, quite frankly, about like what happened for women, or like not just horror, but like funny ways in which like things occurred and then like you weren't given any information about it, or you didn't even know it was coming until it was there. And then it was like, oh, well, yeah, of course, this happens to all women. And you're like, what? What are you talking about? So anyways, I just thought it would be quite funny to come on and have a bit of a conversation with you ladies about like, what was it like for you? How did it happen? And
it was fucking traumatizing.
As I laugh.
I mean, when I was a kid, we used to go and check cattle every Monday. And I got my period on
as one does.
Monday.
They check cattle on Mondays. I love it.
We're checking cattle, and it was awful. So I rode my horse the whole day, and the worst part about it was that my mom was telling everybody that I got my period. I'm like, stop.
Well, I can imagine as one checks cattle, there's probably a lot of cowboys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ones I've known my whole life, like known me since I was a little kid, and oh no, we're just gonna tell everybody. Well, sure my mom's gonna watch this and be like, "Oh, sorry about that, kid."
It's this weird combination of massive amounts of significance while trying to play it down. So, like, for any of you who were energetically aware and like you were aware of all of that, like you said, like all of a sudden you were just like all the other kids, and then now you're identified as something, and it's such a funny energy. Like I personally had a very like kind of easy go about it because my sister like had her period for a long time before I got mine, and I just saw her have hers, and I just was older. I'll just do this. And I don't even remember, like, maybe I had a point of view about it, like having to, but it was just for me, I just kind of like, oh, okay, now this is happening. So, but I had somebody who it wasn't a big deal. Like,
and I was the oldest. I was the oldest of all the kids.
That's what I was going to say. Now, my sister had a very different experience because it was new to her. And my mom, God love my mom and my grandmother, my mom, like, she may have one of the most traumatic stories ever because my mom knew nothing about getting a period, and she got her period and basically thought she was dying. Because it's kind of shocking if no one's ever told you that might actually occur. And she actually like fainted, fell down a bunch of stairs. Then she got sent home, and like my grandmother basically just gave her, like, back then they had those they had those belt things. Sanitary, like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad that wasn't a real thing but she just basically got handed it without no explanation about it. And then, fast forward however long, and she's got 2 girls. So like, I know my sister had a bit different experience with it. Becky, how was yours?
Awful.
Isn't it crazy how most stories were horrible?
Yeah. Well, you're like, oh, Ashley was the oldest, and you had an older sister, and I was the youngest and had 2 older brothers. So, like, first of all, you don't want them to know. It'd be like telling all the cowboys. I'd be horrified because they'd tell all their friends, and who knows. But well, for me, I was at my dad's house. So my mom and dad got divorced, and then how lucky was I to be at my dad's house that weekend? And I remember calling my mom, and I'm like, "You have to come get me. Like, I can't stay here with this happening to me." Still, that was like in itself just horrible. And it worked out. It was fine. But the one thing that you're like talking about, like leading up to it, is that my mom, whenever she'd be like, "Hey, you want to go for a walk?" I finally learned to say no, because she would talk about it. So I heard way more than anybody ever wants to hear about periods. And and for some of us, like,
you had the opposite. You had the fucking anticipation of like, fuck, what's it going to be like when it shows up for me?
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, can we talk about something else besides periods?
Anything else.
Anything else? Can we talk about anything else besides periods? And my mom would get pretty, she liked details. She loved details. And when some of us are like a little bit autistic and you kind of like get images.
That's intense.
It's not just verbal details, but then you get all the downloads of the pictures. And like, how many of us, like, maybe you were that person, but how many of us in school, like, because then it just becomes part of your life. Like, it is something that occurs once a month. Like, reproduction is one of the strangest, oddest things that we all just are like, yeah, it's normal. It's not really that. Like, it is an odd thing. It's like, whether you were the person or you knew of a person, like most women also know, and men, of the girl who got her period and
and had white pants on that day, and gets up in school and bleeds everywhere.
Like, how fucked up is, like, you don't actually know when it's going to show up. Like,
yeah, it's still hard for me to buy white pants. I'm like, who wears white? Like,
like, how many? Like, I won't wear white pants. And even if I know, I'm like, maybe when I go through the change and I no longer have a period, I will actually start to wear white pants, because it's like in your world of like, the one time I wear white pants, I'll have some random weird freaking period that shows up for no reason,
and you'll get up.
I hope everyone listening to this is getting that, because when we were talking about this, we were laughing so hard because it's the thing that all women have these stories around this. Like, and I remember I was a gymnast. So, wearing feminine hygiene things, like, while you're in a leotard is very interesting. And like, I just jumped directly to, like, I didn't really do the feminine hygiene things. I did more like tampons kind of thing.
I went right to tampons.
Me too. I was like,
I couldn't deal with the other.
That.
Yeah,
I never like and
then my mom seen them in my closet and then wanted to go in detail how to use them. And at the time, I didn't.
I do remember that.
I was like, no, you cannot show me.
I didn't want to hear about it. Exactly. I was like, no,
I'll figure it out. I'll read the directions.
That was my more response. I was more like, I got it. Like, I don't I'm talking about it. Just don't. But I can remember, like, there was always this thing where, like, we would be gymnasts, we would be like competing. And there was always the one girl whose tampon string had found its way out. And she's like doing her beam routine, and all you can fucking see is the tampon string. So then it's like, now I'm paranoid. Now I'm horrified, and I have to like check 12 fucking times. It's something like, and
then like kind of just tuck it up
every
in there.
dude that was possibly going, what do they do? What is it? Yeah, they've all logged off now, because this is also something that dudes are not going to have conversation
they're
now.
like, no, not happening.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And it's
awesome.
so interesting because it is like the beginning. Like I said, it is this transitory period of like literally period. You know, from like you're just like all the other kids, and then all of a sudden this thing occurs to you, and maybe you knew about it, maybe you didn't know about it, maybe your friends have already experienced it. So, you know, we all have different degrees of what that created for us in our lives. And it also becomes the very beginning of like you now, like in your world, whether you acknowledged it then or not, you now have that possibility of having children. Like that's the whole that's the whole thing of, you know.
I had mine pretty early. What about you guys?
I did too.
So I was, I think, like in the 5th grade, I was like, oh, I could have kids now. I'm not sure I was thinking about that. Mine was really early. 5th grade?
Well, whether you think about it or not, it is
Okay.
like the body, like that.
It is a thing.
Preparing for that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it could be cognitively in your world, and for most of us, I think, like, I don't know about you guys, but sex education class, or you know, reproductive education classes, and I think there was one in 5th grade. They were like, it was like the teacher was more embarrassed to talk about it than we were to hear about it, but we were also, you know, so it's like everybody just like, no, we're not, okay, we're talking about it, but we're not talking about it.
In Canada, we actually had pretty good sex like all like grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, and then I
Wow.
think grade 9.
The Canadians were educated.
Yeah.
So were you like aware of that idea that like, okay, now I have my period and now that's like, it's possible that I could get pregnant? Like that was your, like, was that in your world? Like you?
Oh yeah. Like it was like drilled into my head too from my parents. Like my mom was like, we're not having any teenage pregnancies around here.
So it's like,
she's like, if you're having sex, we're going to get you on birth control right now.
So again, I can guarantee you there's like that mixture of it where it's like you had parents like yours, Ashley, where they were like laying the groundwork and the rules. Now it's like, because it does all of a sudden change. And then I'm sure there were a lot of parents out there that were like still in denial that their kids might actually be sexually active at that age, or like would even consider doing something like that at that age.
Well, and it was also like drilled into my head, like sex is really significant. So like, I think I was 17.
Yeah. That's actually pretty old for you to be getting your.
Mm-hmm.
You were 17?
No, I was 17 the first time I had sex. I was 13 when I had my period.
Oh, great. Now we're going into that conversation.
Well, not quite yet. People are going to have to stay tuned for that secondary conversation. And really, like, I love this. And we just wanted to come up on this little live here and stir up a bunch of uncomfortable shit for people. Really, that's really what we're doing. We're talking about like those moments of life where it's like, wow, that was an interesting moment in my life. And like I said, most people have funny stories about it. But we are coming back on Wednesday.
Woo!
To have that additional conversation of what was the sex talk for you, which I'm really excited about that. We're going to have different people on, more people on, because that's another hilarious life event that people like all go through that we don't ever until you do get on in talking with people about it. And it's really funny. So hopefully you will join us on Wednesday for what was the sex talk like for you. And there's also something coming up this weekend that we want to invite you to. And it's really the beginning. This is what the beginning of it is. Like, you know, when do babies start talking? So.
I love it.
Me too. So we just wanted to come in and just have a little quickie chat about how did it happen for you. And we hope you join us on Wednesday for the next installment. And we'll see you guys very soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.